Sujit S. Nair, FRSA, who has been featured by Forbes, Diplomatic, Career, Times of India, and other national and international publications, is an accomplished foreign policy leader who pioneered systematic Track 1.5 diplomacy initiatives for strengthening India-EU, India-UK relations. He is the founder chairman of the Europe-India Centre for Business and Industry. Over the past 12 years, he orchestrated 29 key engagements at parliaments in Europe, notably 25 at the British Parliament and 4 at the European Parliament, facilitating dialogue between British MPs, European Parliament members, Indian lawmakers and businesses. He ensured participation by around 40 MPs from the UK, India and EU, fostering vital political discourse over the years. He conceptualized the annual Europe-India 40 Leaders list, which stands as the foremost authority in recognizing youthful leadership in the UK-India, EU-India domain. Initially launched in 2019, this list sees a new unveiling each year, announced during a virtual ceremony attended by MPs from India, the UK and the European Union, with certificates subsequently awarded at the European Parliament in Brussels. His global recognition includes being invited by the US Department of State for the 2015 Global Entrepreneurship Summit, co-hosted by then US President Barack Obama and Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta at the United Nations office in Nairobi.
Today, we have the privilege of speaking with a distinguished personality who has been at the forefront of fostering India's international relations, particularly with the UK and the EU. Let's welcome Sujit Nair. Hi, Sujit.
Hello.
Okay, it's a pleasure to have you here in our studio.
Thank you very much for having me in.
Wonderful. So, what inspired you to pursue a career in foreign policy and international relations?
My background is basically, I'm an MBA from London Metropolitan University. Prior to that, I moved from a science background. I did my master's in biotechnology. So I worked for a couple of years in the industry. When I went to, post that is where I went to UK to do my MBA. Out there, my initial perception was the understanding of India is very limited compared to probably other emerging economies like China or Brazil or regions and stuff. And also what I could find was the understanding of the south of India compared to Mumbai, Delhi. Of course, people are much more familiar with what Mumbai is, what Delhi is. But the south of India was not anywhere in the radar for companies which are looking to come and establish their operations or for people who want to come visit. The perception was different. So that's where an initial thought did come about to showcase the south of India to stakeholders in UK. So that's how my initial interaction, the initial journey of when I started in 2011 was to showcase regions like Kerala. So the first session was the UK Kerala Business Conference in the UK Parliament in London. So the idea of this engagement was to have it at the British Parliament in London. And the reason why we also want to do is that we wanted the members of Parliament out there to also know about different regions of South India, meet people from the south of India who would sort of come in, engage with them. And that gives me a first-hand perspective of what India is. Rather than what the media portrays. I still feel that the Western media does not portray India in a way by which it has to offer a balanced view. I do know that India has its positives and negatives, but probably the negatives are shown in a much bigger way rather than the positives. So that's how I want to showcase, from whatever is possible from my end, to showcase the better side of India. And initially the journey started off with the south of India. So that was Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Pondicherry, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh. These were the regions which you want to showcase it. And so the idea was not it's been 2023 now. Now we have done 25 major engagements with the UK Parliament. Post-Brexit, we also started engaging with the European Parliament in Brussels. We have done 4 major engagements with the European Parliament. So, but when I started in 2011, the idea was not how it's going to take off. Even now, it's just one small step at a time. just to figure out. And that's how I've been able to sort of be in this space, engage with various stakeholders in the UK, India, EU, India space, and hopefully contribute in trying to showcase India in a much balanced view to the European stakeholders. So that's how this journey has been for the past 12 years now.
Okay, that's quite amazing. You could picturize everything at that moment and put yourself into that picture, right?
Of course, that's
a
yeah.
true gift that you have shared for India, I would say here.
Thank you.
Can you share some insights from your time organizing summits in Europe, especially at the British and European parliaments? That is something which is outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, see, the idea when we started this engagement was to engage with stakeholders who would sort of make a meaningful discussion or sort of initiate those discussions in the parliaments. Because when I hopefully have a British MP attending our engagement at the UK Parliament, as I did mention, we've done 25 for the past 12 years now. We also bring in British MPs here to different regions of India. Have also brought a number of British MPs to Kerala as part of the engagements. So the idea here is that once they go back, hopefully during these speeches at the UK Parliament, just like the parliaments here, the MPs speak during the session, it gives them a first-hand perspective when they share their information out there. So that's how these engagements at the British Parliament has really helped in hopefully providing a better view of what India is. So once those speeches are sort of spoken at the Parliament, it also does resonate to their constituents, various stakeholders. When they tweet about it, when they promote in the social media channels and stuff, people get to hear about a different side of India. So that's how I've been able to pursue on the UK-India side. UK-India is much more easier because British MPs do engage with number of Indian origin constituents in their constituency.
Okay.
Because they tend to be voters who can influence their seats. So they're much better informed about India because it's important for them to know who their voters are. And a good number of them are of Indian origin. So they need to understand subcontinent politics. I mean, when I'm in the Indian subcontinent, Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Sri Lankans.
Exactly.
So when they engage with India as a whole. But the challenge with Europe, I mean the European Union, is that European Union, the 27 nations, we started engaging post-Brexit. I mean, when UK left European Union is where we started engaging with the European Union. Our first engagement at the European Union was in 2018. Now, over the past years now, we've done 4 major engagements. We have another one coming about in March of next year, 6th of March of next year. And that focuses on sectors on medical equipments and automobiles. These are 2 sectors we are focusing on. The challenge which I do see in the European Union is that the understanding of India is very, very limited. Rather than certain pockets, you don't get an understanding of what India is. And also in the case of members of European Parliament, they do not have much of voters who are of Indian origin or from India, unlike UK. So the understanding is what the media portrays. And that is where I do feel that our engagements, where we do have MPs come in, they first-hand meet stakeholders who are traveling from here, hear about it, they participate in our activities. That gives them a very good understanding of what India is. Then it's up to them how to make a decision. But towards the end of the day, it's important to also give them another point of view. Example, last week, we have an annual listing of leaders called Europe India 40. This is a listing by which we look at leaders under the age of 40 from the UK-India corridor, EU-India corridor, and we release that list. Initially, the list is announced virtually, and then they get the certificate to the European Parliament. So initially, we started off as 40 under 40. We had 40 leaders, but then we do not have much of young leaders in the EU-India. You have more from the UK-India space, but the EU-India space, we have less of leaders. So then we reduced it, just the age under 40, but we did not have a number of leaders who make up the list. So this year, we just had around 20 leaders. But then to announce the list virtually last week, we had a member of European Parliament, we had a member of British Parliament, we had a member of Indian Parliament who were there for the virtual ceremony to announce the list. So the idea is that we had this member of European Parliament also as part of this engagement, speaking out EU-India relations. And today he's in India with 4-5 other MEPs in Delhi engaging with stakeholders. So of course the government engagement is different. But from we are an independent organization, engaging with us gives them a more different perspective about the sort of what work happens there and stuff. So these engagements tend to provide a different view which we try to also let the MPs and the members of European Parliament aware of what India is and what sort of opportunities India does provide for various stakeholders.
So tell me, how did your experience at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit 2015 shape your perspective on international collaboration?
Yeah, that was a very interesting invitation, which I did get from the US Department of State. What was also interesting is that, so we had then US President Barack Obama there. So it was co-hosted by then Kenyan President Mr. Kenyatta.
Okay.
And it was hosted at the UN office in Nairobi. So we did have a good number of chosen delegates. It was a very curated set of delegates from different parts of the world who did come in. So that was a very interesting perspective to hear from leaders from different, basically younger leaders, younger set of leaders who have come from different parts of the world, sharing their perspective, mingling with them, understanding. That's where this first-hand experience, when you meet a person from another region, your perspective of what things are entirely changes, because you would have built a certain perspective based on what you read from the media, what you read from different perspectives and stuff. But once you meet somebody outside, of course there are certain parts which might have its own set of challenges. But then there is a vast network out there, vast regions out there which people wouldn't even be bothered about. Even here, when we see floods at one part, people outside probably thinks that the entire region is flooded.
Exactly.
So, but only once you get a first-hand perspective, you meet people, is where you get to, your perspective changes. So that's where these interesting interactions with these young leaders from different parts of the world really helped me to understand that just hearing from one side does not actually give you a full story of what exactly it is. It's when you meet them, interact with them, those experiences does stay and helps me to probably evolve as a person and help me to do better, gives me better ideas and better perspective work on things.
Okay, that's awesome. So being recognized as one of the top foreign policy leaders under 33 is a remarkable achievement. What does this recognition mean to you, personally and professionally?
Yeah, this was probably a too early stage in my career. This was in 2013. It's almost 10 years back. There's a known diplomatic magazine called Diplomatic Career, which is based in Washington, D.C. So they have this annual listing of leaders called 99 under 33. So basically they looked at leaders below the age of 33 and they looked at 99 leaders from across the world. So it was a very interesting experience, and to be invited to Washington DC to meet these few leaders who are in that space, and a good set of engagements, because at that time I was quite early, because my first engagement in this international relations space was in 2011. At that stage it was not much about international relations.
Okay.
It was about, there was something I'm doing. So towards
your life.
Yeah. So as I started doing it, is where I understood it was more of now I try to say as it's more of systematic track 1.5 diplomacy initiatives in trying to build this UK-India, EU-India relations. Track 1.5 diplomatic initiatives is where you bring on government actors, you bring on non-government actors, have set of interactions, so that you try to you try to sort of understand a few of the issues, try to get it sorted out. Which track one diplomacy is where you have government actors, government-to-government interactions. So there are limitations of how much government-to-government actions works out. So that's where non-government actors also does come in and try to share those, share the narratives, try to provide better feedback to the government. Okay, this might not be the approach which probably might work. This might probably be another approach. You can look at it.
So you have different angles like that.
Yeah.
Perspectives.
Different perspectives. Yeah, you get that. Probably from government-to-government interaction might not be usually easier to get those perspectives, because you, as diplomats, as ministers, there's specific criteria, guidelines you need to follow. But during this track 1.5 or track 2 is where you have less of government, more of non-government people and stuff. That's where it's easier to get some sticky issues by which certain negotiations are not going yet. So that's where you get this feedback and you tend to work on those, which does help government when they finally try to close these discussions. So these engagements helps me to further fine-tune the sort of work I kept on doing. So that's where that did provide a good sort of understanding about how things can be structured better.
Awesome. Yeah. So you got a labeled 33 there.
Yeah, of course. That's
that is amazing. Yeah. So what are some key signatures, or I should put it as strategies, you've implemented at EICBI to foster business opportunities between India and Europe?
Yeah. So EICBI stands for Europe India Center for Business Industry, of which I'm the founder chairman. Through a series of activities which have done this, and in the previous, initially when I started off this journey, I did mention about the south of India.
Yes.
So the organization was called British South India Council of Commerce. We do have the structure still present, but that structure was more focused on Britain and the south of India, as the name suggests and stuff. And post-Brexit is where, and also when we started engaging on various sector-specific opportunities is where we had the structure called Europe India Center for Business and Industry. So both the side, I was the founder chairman, and in the case of Europe India Center for Business and Industry, I've been sort of structured that. How we do this sort of promotion of initiatives is that we do these activities at the UK Parliament, at the European Parliament. That is one set of it. Then we have this delegation visits. So of course businesses do travel. In addition to that, as I did mention, we do have British MPs who we bring in here. We bring them here. We engage them in discussion with the government representatives. We engage them in discussion with trade organizations, with business leaders. Here, when we brought a British MP to Kerala, we also had him experience Ayurveda here. So he went through an Ayurvedic treatment. Because he happened to be also the chairman of an all-party parliamentary group on traditional medicine in UK Parliament. So it's important for him to get an understanding. He might be a chairman, but probably has not experienced what India's one of major traditional medicine Ayurveda
Potentiality of
what is it? I mean, actually, you have to experience what you drink water. You need to understand what water is. That's when you understand that it's going to quench my thirst. In the same way, he was able to experience it, and he is the chairman of it. So the idea was that they get a further understanding of what does it. When last year was 60 years of diplomatic relation between India and the European Union, so we did a series of campaign called EU India 60, which looked at those dates in history. And on a particular day of that last year, we did a simultaneous activity. Example, January 27th, 1962 was when Jawaharlal Nehru first sent across a letter to the European Union to have a formal diplomatic engagement. So we had a particular engagement which had participation of a member of European Parliament. We had somebody from the EU Embassy here. In the similar way, on 2nd of March, we had an interaction with the, because that was when India's ambassador first took over in the European Union. So we had interaction here. Last year, on 20th of June, was when the first EU-India summit did take place in 2000. So we had an engagement last year on 20th of June at the European Parliament to celebrate that sort of an summit.
So you also would have experienced the different scenarios or aspects, what they're trying to share with you in their community.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's true. That gives us a perspective. We also launched something called EU India Legends Coffee Table Book, which looked at 60 legends, right from Jawaharlal Nehru from India, Narendra Modi ji from India, Indira Gandhi ji, and other European leaders, the 60 legends whom we believe have sort of contributed to India relations over the past 60 years. So that was also launched at the European Parliament. And then we have this Europe India 40 leaders list. And so what we say is that these are the next generation of leaders who would promote the India's relationship with UK, or UK's relationship with India, or EU's relationship with India. So these are the next generation of leaders. So usually what we also do is that we sometimes have these virtual interactions where we have the existing leaders, the MPs and other stakeholders speaking on a particular topic, and then we also have this Europe India 40 leaders speaking on the topic. So the idea is that we are getting what the current perspective is and what the future opinion of those next generation of leaders would be. So we're trying to get an understanding of what the current opinion is and what the future opinion is. So that's why we do the multiple series of engagements as we try to promote UK India and EU India relations.
Okay, that's awesome. Elaborate on your experience with the Royal Society of the Encouragement of Arts, Manufactures and Commerce.
Yeah, Royal Society of Arts, Manufacture and Commerce, shortly known as the RSA. It's a 260-year-old society now, based out of London. So the society, some of the former fellows includes Benjamin Franklin, Charles Dickens, you name some of those major players out there. I mean, major guys who have sort of contributed to society advancement. So that's how RSA tends to put itself. So the patron happened to be the Queen Elizabeth, who recently passed away, and Princess Royal for the patrons of the Royal Society of Arts. And also have been a fellow of the Royal Society for almost 10, 11 years now. And that does provide a good sort of credibility in the sort of work I do. Because obviously the work I do through Europe India Center for Business and Industry, the foreign relations aspects and stuff, does require serious amount of credibility with the sort of people whom I meet They will have their own team, try to do background checks, understand who the person is,
Okay.
because they don't want to get involved. And now considering I also work with the European Parliament, I mean,
Totally
there's serious
understand.
regulations, regulatory, I mean, regulation, there's a lot of background checks which does happen. So being part of a RSA does help me to help at least to get some credibility to the work I do. And I'm also sort of an RSA connector, by which they say sort of an ambassador who usually RSA tends to engage with the fellows in India and stuff. So that's where the fellowship of RSA has quite helped me in my other work, and which on more from the credibility point of view when I engage in engagement with various stakeholders.
So, as a fellow of the Sandbox Network, how do you contribute to this community of extraordinary young leaders?
Yeah, Sandbox, it's more of a privately closed network of some amazing people across the world. It's basically, they say, a network of young trailblazers who are supposed to contribute to the development. Being part of it does help me to probably connect with the right sort of people, and it's much more of a trusted sort of network of people. So you request something, usually there's a way they can reach out, or they can sort of help to assist in probably reaching out to somebody, probably answering a particular query, or probably handling a specific issue. So being part of that does really help me to reach out to few extraordinary people out there across the world.
All right, yeah. What was a defining moment for you during your felicitation at the UK Parliament in 2014?
Yeah, I mean, the important stuff about the felicitation is just one part of it, but it was who did that.
Okay.
It was basically Lord Sir Rajpal who basically he put a shawl trying to thank for the sort of work which I'm trying to do in the UK-India space. I mean, Lord Sir Rajpal is somebody whom I've heard right as a kid, as somebody who was a big NRI businessman who's doing great work in London and stuff. So it was really a very interesting moment to actually have him do it. And then later on, I had an opportunity to meet separately with him, with his son, with his grandson. So me and my wife, when we traveled to London a few years back, also he did host us for a short interaction and stuff. So that was really good to hear, to actually meet people whom you hear all throughout your childhood, and then somebody who's there, who's done a lot of interesting stuff, and to be in the same space, sharing your thoughts, sharing your experience. That was a really interesting moment. Yeah.
Okay. How did your academic background in MBA and MSc Biotechnology contribute to your career path?
See, MBA does, I do get to people who do reach out to me to study abroad and stuff.
Okay.
And the advantage of which I did get studying in MBA was in London, is what it did help me to network with the right kind of people out there. Because obviously London is a melting pot of people from across the world who would sort of come in. And it is much easier to meet people out there in London. Just like if I'm meeting a specific set of foreign policy leaders, I would prefer Delhi, or business leaders, I would prefer Mumbai. So I mean, there's certain places where world comes in, and London is one of those places. So studying MBA did help me to meet those interesting set of people who has sort of played a role in the sort of work I do. I mean, a lot of the background, because obviously when I started off this one, there was no much of a background for me to work. But studying there was the one which really opened out doors to meet interesting people.
So you're able to create a proper network.
Of course, yeah. You do hear of people from Oxford, Cambridge and stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, of course, initially you get overwhelmed. But then when you interact with them, then you just understand it's just part of your work. You just try to engage with them and try to see how best you can also contribute to the work that's happening out there.
So you have that positive attitude.
Of course, yeah. I go to attitude to figure out, okay, it's an issue, everything. There's an issue, there's a challenge.
Exactly.
There's a solution
Exactly.
and that solution just have to be figured out. It's just that probably I might not know the solution today, but doesn't mean that I'll not know it tomorrow. You just need to figure out a solution for that.
Exactly, yes.
So that's how these does help me to understand, address these issues.
Okay. So what are the core objectives of Civilian Foundation for Developed India, and how are they being achieved?
Yeah. Shivling Foundation for Developed India was set up majorly to focus on it's a Section 8 company, an NGO, non-governmental organization. which focuses on skill development part of it, and also focuses on the economic development part of it. So what I try to do through EICBI, the Europe India Center for Business Industry, is the economic development part of it. What we have been trying to do also in Kerala over the last few months is that we are trying to host ambassadors from different countries here. Example, a couple of months back, we had the Romanian ambassador here in Kerala. We had him up. Yeah, I think you were there along with your colleague. So the idea was that they come and they get to hear about what these are. And hopefully the idea is that they spread the word Kerala across in their documentation, across to their stakeholders out there. I mean, hopefully the next couple of months back, we might have few other European Union countries, ambassadors in Kerala come and engage in discussion. The idea is that they come and they hear what opportunities out here is. They go back, they speak to their business network, and there might be an economic development which might come out of it. That is one part of it. On the skill development part, here, one of the reasons I do spend a bit of time in Kochi is that, along with my wife, we run an academy here where we work majorly with women. We train them in makeup artistry. My wife's passion was makeup. She studied international development, entrepreneurship in Scotland.
That's amazing.
But her interest, her father was in cashew business, and right from her childhood, she was always interested in makeup because her father used to travel. He's a cashew exporter. He used to be a cashew exporter.
Okay.
And now he's much retired. But then there was a time when he was quite known across the industry, and he used to travel everywhere, bring in the best quality products out there.
Okay.
So that increased her interest in makeup. And that's where one of those visits during Kochi is where she started doing short, small classes at home. So we had people coming in. That actually took to an entirely different form because people really liked the way she was teaching, and that's when it structured into an entire different organization, the brand called Face Palette. Among the industry, people who want to study makeup, we are quite known in that. And then is when we set up a full-fledged academy, which does offers multiple type of makeup-related courses. That is one part of it. Then what we also do is that what we understand is in Kerala, it's an entirely different societal structure, and also opportunities-wise, women tend to find less set of opportunities. And makeup artistry is it's sort of a flexi skill set, because obviously you work for a few hours early in the morning, then you're free for the rest of the day to take care of the home and kids and stuff. So that's how we have women coming in from various parts of Kerala. Basically, at the moment, the media film section is Malayalam. So they come in, but we also have them coming from the Middle East, come stay in hostels, study and go back. And what we also figured out is that once they pass out from our course, we have different structure of course. It's difficult for them to get work, because obviously there's established artists, so it's difficult for them to get some
limelight,
and for people to trust them to actually give them a makeup on. So that's how, similar to Uber, we take bookings in the brand Face Palette's name.
Okay.
Across Kerala, and then artists at those locations who are trained goes to deliver the makeup service.
That is amazing. So you're giving a helping hand.
Yeah. So on both sides, train them and then do that. And also, what we do further is that we tend to co-brand their parlors who have studied from us. So that the overall idea is that makeup artist is based on a skill set.
Exactly.
It's not based on a posh interiors or an infrastructure. Then what usually happens is that when we see a parlor or a posh structure beside a small shop, you prefer that, okay, that place will probably follow hygiene and stuff like that, whereas a small place out here probably might not match my expectations. So, and most of the students who come in are from lower middle class or middle class, and they run the small 1-2 woman show parlors ethics. So what we're trying to do is we try to co-brand those parlors using our brand name Face Palette. It gives them much more confidence to them also to compete in weaker areas. And also for customers to trust them. So that's where we work with the skill development part. Try to work with them. So in addition to give them the skill, what is required to actually, and we have improved lives. So we have a lot of students who have come and have struggled, taken tools of study, and they're doing quite well after coming and studying for the stuff.
Like something very interesting that
so that's how we have been spending a bit of time in Kochi, and that's how I stay in Kochi but keep traveling from here. So that requires a different time.
Tell me, how do you balance your diverse roles in foreign policy business and skill development?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question which I've been asked quite a while, because there's no link between the work I do through Europe India Center for Business Industry and the business of Face Palette, the beauty business and stuff. But the interesting stuff here is that the link which I have been able to establish is, I did mention that as part of my Europe India Center for Business Industry work, we bring in British MPs out here for engaging with various stakeholders. What I've also been doing is, when they come in here, also have them come to Face Palette.
Okay.
Interact with students, not just the MPs, also ambassadors. And
Awesome.
so the idea is that for somebody, some rural part of Kerala, coming and studying at Face Palette, to get a certificate from a British MP, it's probably,
it's a privilege.
yeah, it's a privilege. It's probably once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
And we have ambassadors come and speak to those lucky batches. Of course, it doesn't happen every month. Once in a while, it does happen. We have a batch every month. So for speak to the students, it does create an entirely different perception of, because you're not. So usually, when people come and study at our academy, they're not learning a skill. They tend to mold themselves into an entirely different person. I mean, we have seen with a lot of students. They come in, and when they go out, the perspective of life changes about how they look at. So these sort of engagements actually opens their world out. Like, okay, this is also possible. I mean, probably when they speak to them, for the neighbors that have got a certificate from British, people will not believe it. But when they show a photo of them coming to the academy, of course, that changes the perspective of who they are and their reputation, their sort of, the way people look up to them,
Yes.
their peers, their family, it all changes. So that way, there's some link which I've been able to establish, and that's been quite an interesting journey here.
Surely, yes, indeed. And the lucky ones are, the privileged ones get the opportunity.
Of course, yeah, that's true, yeah.
Fantastic. What challenges have you faced in prompting India-EU trade relations, and how have you overcome them?
As I did mention, this is an entirely different space by which the credibility plays an important role. Because obviously now I meet a particular member of parliament or a minister or an engagement, there's a lot of discussion that goes in. So it's, I'm not going to go too much into specifics, but it does happen that few people who are usually gatekeepers of a particular region or a particular space feel that when somebody is coming in new and trying to sort of engage in discussion with stakeholders, they do feel threatened. So I've had a lot of issues by which they reach out to different stakeholders, can be ministers, can be UK Parliamentary Board, I mean different sort of things, trying to create confusion and trying to shoot the credibility part of it, so that there's confusion, things don't happen, the engagements does get cancelled and stuff. So there have been multiple issues which does happen on quite a regular basis. Initially, of course, it's something which I wasn't sure how to handle it. But now I do understand it's part of a job. The sort of work I do, it's normal. What can I say? It's a battle out there. Each one is trying to control his space, his territory.
Exactly.
We don't want somebody else coming into his territory, his space. So they do their best, I do it. So I do my best to just go ahead and keep doing my work. So that way I feel there is nothing much you can do. You just continue. I just have to continue doing what I do. My work probably speaks for itself, and irrespective of when things happen. So that's something which I was able to figure it out. You just go ahead, take one step at a time.
Yeah, okay. So can you share a memorable success story from your career that has had a lasting impact?
I mean, the 2014, the one with Lord Suraj Paul was a really interesting one because I've always heard about him, had a conversation. And about this business, the venture of Face Palette, which you are working on, it's something which I feel is changing a lot of lives because I've seen people, students, I mean women who have struggled to pay the fees. They mortgage their jewelry, they take loan from a lot of places. They cry, they share and stuff. But when a couple of 1 year, 1.5 years post the course, they come in and say, I am buying so many makeup products for so many thousands of rupees. I'm doing this well. I'm giving loan to my family. I mean, so those changes does happen, which is something quite inspiring for the sort of work we do.
Very true. It's like you know as they take loans and stuff and all that, you can see their future.
Of course, yeah. They come back and they say that now I'm giving birth to my family members. So that's the story.
That impact is entirely different.
It really works out.
Okay, so what advice would you give to young professionals like aspiring to work in international relations and trade? Especially you look at these startups now, so many startups are there. Is trying to get into the limelight or get into the picture of success. So what message can you convey to them?
See, I would sort of give an opinion. It's something which, there will be challenges that's going to come about.
Yeah.
And also there's no much of a shortcut. It's a long journey to sort of come in. Of course, few people have been quite, I don't know whether it's luck or whether it's hard work. Probably they've been able to reach, do extensively well in a short period of time. But for majority of us out there, it's taking one step at a time. Probably it might be a slow walk. It might be you might be walking faster, but then it's just one short step at a time, irrespective of what challenges does come in. I mean, so that's work for me, and that's how I've been able to do some sort of work, create some sort of impact over the years.
Okay, all right. Lastly, what are your future goals and aspirations in your varied roles and endeavors?
One of the reasons people have always asked me is why do I do what I do? In the case of Europe India Center for Business Industry and sort of work which I've been for past 12 years. I mean, when I probably started doing this probably a few years back, or probably when I started off, I guess, there was an interesting statistics which I did come across, which stated that in 1700s, India's GDP was around 22% of world's GDP, which was almost similar to Europe's, around 23%. But now India's GDP is around 3 to 4%, whereas Europe's is around 20 or 30%, some number. I don't remember the exact number. I think it's around 30%. So you can see what happened in this 250 years. So 250 years. I mean, the amount of 300 years, sorry, the last 300 years stuff. So I do feel that there's a lot of potential for India to grow as an economy and stuff. It's from that perspective is where I feel that my work can create some sort of an impact for people, probably for us to reach somewhere to that number, that what we were there before. It's not that I'm plucking numbers from thin air. We have been there before.
Okay.
So there's a strong possibility that in the near future, we can sort of be one of those great countries out there which can play a role in the world. So that's where I do feel that my work, what are the small steps which I take, can probably build us in that direction.
Okay. Thanks a lot. I should say thanks a ton for sharing your insights, to people who are going to view this and, understand about your growth and try to implement something which you have shared right now. And also, it truly was a privilege to have you on board, and we thank you so much.
Thank you, Elvis. Thank you very much for having me here.